Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the T.H.O. Movie Reviews podcast, the show where we bring you passionate, honest, and insightful film criticism. I'm your host, Bennett, Campbell, Ferguson. I'm joined today by Shaunette and Maxwell, Meyers, and we're talking about Star Trek. This is the second part of a big podcast on Star Trek we're doing here at T.H.O. We're doing it in honor of the release of Star Trek Beyond, but also the 50th anniversary of the original Star Trek series, and we're each gonna talk about a couple Star Trek movies today. So let's start at the very beginning, as Maria von Trapp would. Mo, I believe you're going to talk about Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
All right, let's start. Rick.
I like it.
Boo!
Alright, so I watched we were basically not assigned. We were asked which ones we wanted to talk about, and I had not seen a lot of the Star Trek movies. I'd seen Wrath of Khan, I'd seen the J.J. Abrams movies, but that was it. And my knowledge of Star Trek, I'm going to give this introduction. My knowledge of Star Trek is limited, but probably more than I think it is. My dad, both my parents, but especially my dad, were fans of Star Trek. I've seen some of the old episodes, I've seen some of The Next Generation, I've seen some of Deep Space Nine, and I have knowledge of the series and the basics of what the movies are like. So I volunteered basically to watch whatever. And so I went...
Sorry, I volunteered to watch whatever.
So, and I went with, going thematically, the two I went with were the beginning and the end of the original cast movies, which means Star Trek: The Motion Picture and Star Trek: The Undiscovered Country. So, Star Trek: The Motion Picture came out in '79. The story is that a giant planet-sized something is sweeping through the galaxy, destroying things, and the Enterprise has to go and deal with it. And anything else would probably be spoilers, and that's kind of the problem with the movie. Star Trek: The Motion Picture isn't a good movie. It's directed by Robert Weiss, who's a great filmmaker, did not make a good movie. And the problem is, there's so many problems with it. But one of the main ones is, it really does come down to the script, and it's it's an episode stretched out into a movie. So it's about 40 minutes of story into 2 hours of movie.
Ugh.
And it shows. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
The part of the thing about it is that it came out in 1979. The show had concluded about a decade earlier. So while the show was in syndication, there were reruns. People probably saw it. The cast hadn't been together. There wasn't any new material. So the movie comes off as the big return. That's the crew of the Enterprise have been separated for years, but now they're coming together again for this job. It feels like the movie ends up feeling like a really awkward high school reunion from how all the characters are. You got Captain Kirk, who shows up, immediately takes control of the ship away from Captain Decker, and is a complete asshole about it. So he's the guy who was the king in high school, and now has come back, and he thinks he's going to be the big guy in charge again. You got...
That description almost makes me like the movie better. It's a fun way of looking at it. I
would love to see a movie that's set in high school, but it's basically a mirrored representation of this movie. Like it would just say, based on the movie Star Trek, and people are like, wait, what the fuck?
And then Bones is back, and he's basically the same, except now he's just complaining that everything's different, because this is a refurbished Enterprise with new technology, and it's all fancy and new, and he doesn't like change or anything. So
Bones doesn't like anything.
So he's just curmudgeonly and complaining the whole time, but that's Bones. That's his character, so that works.
Damn it, man, I'm a doctor, not a
doctor, not a miracle worker.
Damn it, Jim, they can't just do that.
And with Spock, when we first meet Spock in the movie, he's on the Vulcan homeworld, which I think is called Vulcan. I think. Yeah. He's on Vulcan, and he is a Vulcan because that's not confusing. And he's going through some kind of ritual to purge himself of emotions. And it doesn't, and like then he senses the big alien thing, which is eventually called V'ger. He senses V'ger and is like, oh, this is the, and they're like, oh, you're still feeling human emotions. You can't be pure emotionless and pure Vulcan. And so he comes on the Enterprise as the science officer, and it's basically like he's the guy who said, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna make $1 million and I'm gonna be a football player and an astronaut and marry 30 supermodels and be awesome. And then he comes to a high school reunion and he hasn't done anything. That's who Spock is in this movie. And the whole thing just feels weird and alien, like.
But not in the fun Star Trek alien way?
Not in the fun Star Trek kind of way. Kind of like we don't know what we're doing. It's kind of like Robert Weiss, I get the sense, wanted to be like, this was after Star Wars came out, and science fiction was fun again. It was fun and bright and flashy and kid-friendly. And then Robert Weiss wanted to make a movie in the style of 2001, where it was weird and cerebral and psychedelic and surreal. And that doesn't... It might mesh with Star Trek, but it doesn't here, because it just makes the characters walking around awkwardly and not really talking to each other and just being strange and weird. And we get all these shots of, like, flyovers of what V'ger looks like and what the Enterprise looks like, and they last for minutes, which is an eternity in screen time. Just like that first pass around where it's like, we got the new model of the Enterprise, and you were gonna look at it, by God. It's 40 minutes of movie and it's 40 minutes of story in a 2-hour movie.
I agree 100%.
All right.
So you watched
your second film.
The Undiscovered Country as well.
Country, which is a wonderful change of pace.
Quite a bit better than the motion picture.
So the Undiscovered Country is the last Star Trek movie starring the original cast, and the last time they were together. And it came out, I think, by the time it came out, Next Generation started airing.
Yeah, actually it came out the year I was born.
So it was the 25th anniversary of Star Trek, so there's that. So it's very much like a send-off to them, and also a send-off to the original series. And I love what they did with that, which is because the original series is a product of the 60s, so it's going to be informed by the stuff around it, including the Cold War.
Yeah.
And so 1991 movies last story in this setting, the Cold War's ending. This is what it's about. It's about the Cold War ending. And so the story this time around is that the Klingons, basically their war with the Federation has cost them too much. They can't survive anymore, and they need Federation help. And so it's like, okay, we're going to open peace treaties with the Klingons. And that doesn't sit well with a lot of people, especially Kirk, because in previous movies, spoiler alert, his son was killed by Klingons. And so...
No! Sorry, I couldn't resist.
and so... Oh, wait, yeah, no, you didn't see that movie yet. And so you get to the Undiscovered Country is the future, and it's a line from Hamlet, because no one will let you forget that they're quoting Shakespeare in this movie, because everybody does it. All the time, forever. And that's the weird thing. Like, the last line of it is not a Shakespeare quote. It's a quote from British literature, but not Shakespeare.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite moments in the movie is when the villain, played by Christopher Plummer, is like quoting Shakespeare, and I like the Shakespeare quotes, but I still thought it was funny when he quotes Shakespeare and then Bones says, "I'd give real money if he'd shut up." That was just such a great moment.
It's a great line. And it's just hilarious that he's him, just the sight of Christopher Plummer in like Klingon makeup, wearing an eye patch, spinning around in a chair going, "Let cry havoc and let loose the dogs of war." And it's like, oh, so wow. Great. Take it down.
That man
buddy.
has an Academy Award.
I love you, man, but you gotta take it down a notch. You're at a 10. I need you to be about a 7.
Only one man's allowed to hit 10, and that's Kirk, so back it up. We gotta make him look normal.
But, it's an interesting. It's really. I think it's well done. There's a little bit of a plot cul-de-sac because Kirk and Bones get captured and sent to a space gulag by the Klingons because they got framed for killing the Klingon ambassador. It's kind of funny, but it doesn't really go anywhere. It's just like we're waiting for the Enterprise to come rescue them. There's a mystery, and I like the mystery of like who killed the ambassador.
Yeah.
It's really obvious who did it, but because it's like, we're all gathered together.
I'm going to guess, is it Christopher Plummer?
Yeah, he had a hand in it.
Kind of, sort of.
Oh man,
it's like,
I like that. There's no clear answer right now.
Oh no, there's more than one answer.
Oh great,
but it's like we're all gathered together, and one new person, all your old friends, and this friend who's a stranger. But take our word for it.
We're lucky if that person doesn't die, they did it. That is what I have learned. Hi, I'm Jim. Man, it's nice to meet you, Jim. How's your wife? Good. We just had our first child. I'm dead.
But,
give her my regards.
But Undiscovered Country, that was also directed by Nicholas Meyer, who did Wrath of Khan, and it feels like it in a lot of ways. And it's very much this swashbuckling adventure in space, and it's got the political backdrop of it with Star Trek. And it's a lot more satisfying film than the motion picture. Granted, that's not a high bar to clear, but it's a solid send off. And I love one of the little touches they did at the end that I loved was they list the cast. They show signatures of each of the cast, so it's George Takei, DeForest Kelley, Nichelle Nichols, etc. And I just thought it added a personal touch that I really liked.
Well, Max, you watched 2 Star Trek movies that deal with, in a way, the same story, with The Wrath of Khan and Into Darkness. So, take it away.
It was originally I for some reason I was gonna get movie 2, but Mo was gonna get movie 1. I suggested that I do movie 2 and Into Darkness, Wrath of Khan, because they both deal with the Khan storyline, which I think, from what I've gathered from most people, Wrath of Khan is like the quintessential Star Trek movie.
Yep.
No one seems to argue that. Quick little, real introduction, all you really need is, it's the sequel to the terrible Star Trek movie, apparently. It's really a sequel to an episode dealt with in the series where they come across Khan. I don't know if I haven't come across the episode myself. I was trying to watch my way through it. I'm going to, and we'll get there, but right now that's not where we're at. But so we've met this character Khan who holds a grudge against Kirk and the Enterprise and Kirk is no longer Captain Kirk, he's Admiral Kirk.
Yeah.
He is risen in the ranks and he is out for vengeance, which, happens. It really kind of feels more like a 2-parter episode, but in a movie, and it works. In this instance, the length does work. This one is about a few minutes shy of 2 hours, and it does work. And I think it has everything to do with the story. I think it's not getting the band back together. It's the band is here. The band is doing their thing. Kirk is an admiral. Spock is now captain, which he does relinquish control over very nicely. They make sure that Kirk doesn't come in. He kind of comes in to make inspections, and Spock's like, "You're in charge. You can totally do what you want." And he's like, "Okay, fine." And it's also kind of him facing being old, and Bones doing just because we're getting old doesn't mean you have to be old. You can still go out there and do things. Why are we just sitting here? And he's like, I'm too old for that. You're never too old to do what you love. Just get out there and do it. And so...
Unless what you love is being young.
Yeah, you're kind of fighting that one. So they go out there and all of a sudden Khan is hot on their tail and Kirk kind of I guess I'm in charge right now because I'm the highest commanding person, and also Spock was like, take over, go for it, and how he deals with that, and the big question keeps coming up, how the needs of the few outweigh the needs of the many.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
There we go. Well, and it's of the few, which then we later find sometimes it's the needs, or the few is really only one person, and Spock gives his life, dies of radiation poisoning. They send him off, and it's really sad. But it's nice because it's not like we have to explain where we've been. They managed to bypass that by saying, this is where we're at. So you can kind of infer where we've been by the little things we're going to say. Oh, Kirk, you have a son with a scientist, and it's great. I think Ricardo Montalban, who plays Khan, he's just fun. He's the only one who can. Great. It's like he matches Kirk's level just perfect. Like maybe it's a little bit more so because he's like, of course, I'm mad and I'm from space. And then I'd watched Into Darkness to do like a cross comparison by dealing with the same story. And of course, J.J. Abrams doesn't want everyone to know what's going on, so he's I don't remember Bennett.
John Harrison.
John Harrison.
Commander John Harrison.
John Harrison. Surprise! I'm Spock, which is what we do from the beginning. Dun dun dun. Spoiler.
But it's continue. It's not my turn yet.
Oh, it's just. I mean, it's interesting. The only previous experience I had with Star Trek before this assignment was I watched the new movie and Into Darkness, and I was like, oh, it's okay. I can see these because they don't take place in the same universe. They do, but we're going to alter the timeline so we can do what we want with it a little bit. And it really works. It does. I think that first movie's great, like dealing with the fact that in this reality Spock has no home. But also Kirk has no father.
Right.
Because of events, that now is how it is. And you get Leonard Nimoy to come in and be like, trust me, that hurt me, and I have a family in a different timeline. He goes, like, trust me, it's there. And I think by doing that, I think it allows them, I don't think it's a cop-out. I think it's being able to tell stories with characters with histories we know, but able to take it somewhere else. And I think maybe that's why the second movie doesn't work as well, is because it's almost trying to tell the same Khan story, as opposed to before where it was like, well, we could kind of do what we want, or alter it how we want, and they alter it in a weird way. I don't know what it is. All right, Ben, what was your assignment?
Well, teacher Ben assigned himself a couple Star Trek movies. The two I picked, they're not related, but I decided to pick my favorite Star Trek film, and a Star Trek film that I think is one of the more flawed ones, but I also have a soft spot, for a lot of reasons that I'll talk about. And I'll start with that one first. It's Star Trek Insurrection, the third of the Next Generation movies. And as we were talking about earlier, it's the space Amish movie where Picard and Riker and company they go to this planet where it's kind of a fountain of youth type planet. The people there live forever, and Starfleet wants to take away their secret immortality and use it to help cure people and stuff. But as a result, the planet's going to be uninhabitable. But to me, honestly, that whole plot is basically just cheap bubblegum. I mean, I couldn't care less. And the reason I like the movie is because I love the Next Generation characters, and this movie has some of the best interaction between them. I mean, I always loved how the Next Generation was kind of this kind of the wittily, artsy, literate version of Star Trek, and what do you know? The first act is barely over. Then and you have Data and Worf and Picard singing a Gilbert and Sullivan song together, and it's just goofy and it's great. And there's all kinds of mischief. You get Riker and Troy take a bubble bath. Worf gets affected by the immortality, magic on the planet, and starts going through puberty again, and it's just
you're describing what you said was a good movie, and this sounds completely off the walls bananas.
Yeah, this is exactly selling me on Space Amish.
It's so oh my gosh, it's so much fun, and and yet there is this.
I mean, I do enjoy a bubble bath, but
yeah, well, there's a real sweetness to it too that I love. For instance, these people on this planet, they just hate technology, and there's this great relationship.
They would die in today's standards.
Yeah. There's this great relationship Data has with this little kid on the planet who starts out, like, I don't want this machine near me, and slowly they start to warm to each other with Data being kind of a mentor to the kid, but it's also the other way around because Data, he was built fully grown. He was never a child, and he's has these great conversations with the kid where he's asking, what's what's it like to be a child? You know, I only know what it's like to be this, you know, big tall robot. Yeah, and it's just there's another moment I want to mention where Picard has decided to defy Starfleet, and he's going to take the crew down. He's going to go help the people down on the planet. And Riker is going to go back to the Federation and try and convince them that Picard's right. And there's this great moment where Picard has sent Riker to go back, and Riker just says to him, "I'll be back before you know it." And there's something about that moment that really speaks to the solidarity of the Next Generation crew. I mean, they truly are a family. You know, they've been through ups and downs. They've gotten on each other's nerves. You know, but there's a lot of love, and I think Insurrection. I would never argue that it's perfect, because it's not. I think you guys can tell that just by hearing me describe it.
Just by the plot. It's obviously not the best Star Trek film.
But in a way, I think it's one of the sweetest. Just because you do feel that love between the characters. So that's my plug for Insurrection. But
now, why did we watch that compared to, like, in conjunction to? Was there a reason, the conjunction between this one and the other Star Trek film?
Right. Well, just because the one I'm going to talk about next, the reboot from 2009, the reboot is my favorite of all of them, and Insurrection is kind of it's not my favorite. It's the one that I think that doesn't get enough recognition, and I think could use some. So I wanted to give it a plug.
You're using your press to make a movie better.
No.
Casting your magic press wand over it. Congrats! Why didn't I think of that sooner?
I'm giving it a little boost, a little helping hand, a helping beam, as it were.
Okay, all right, I'll let you have it.
But
we almost disagreed for a second. Did you hear that?
Oh, was that going to come to blows? No, but
hardest thing.
But onto the reboot. The reboot holds a special place in my heart because I walked into the Moreland Theater to see it in 2009. I had no idea what Star Trek was. I knew nothing about Star Trek. I'd seen none of the movies, none of the none of the TV shows, none of that. And so I don't know what I'm getting into. I just know I'm going to see a space adventure that's gotten really good reviews.
This is really good.
Oh, yeah. And I go in, and then that great scene comes on with Kirk's father sacrificing himself to save Kirk and Kirk's mother. And it's one of the...
Kirk's father, wasn't that... That was Chris Hemsworth.
That was Chris Hemsworth, yeah.
Thor sacrificing himself.
Sacrificing himself to save Captain Kirk.
Looks nothing like him.
And I'm not going to lie, the tears started streaming down my face and I was hooked. And, I mean, that's what I love about the reboot. I mean, there's so much to say about it, but I think the best thing I can say is that, I mean, I've become a pretty nerdy Trekkie since then. And I've become like the kind of Trekkie that's like, I want Star Trek to be slower paced and more thoughtful and, have more allegories and whatnot. But at the same time, there's just something really pure and impactful about the emotion of that reboot. And just the fact that it's about loss. It's about, Kirk trying to figure out, my father's gone. What do I do with my life? How do I live up to him? About Spock, not only losing his mother, but really deciding, who am I? Am I a Vulcan? Am I a human? Which world do I belong to? And I think even though it's a simplistic story about fighting, an alien, hell-bent on destroying Earth, which is, kind of rote and disappointing, I think the emotion that the movie's instilled with is what makes it impactful, and which is what makes it my favorite of the movies.
The emotions and the ideas in that one are really good. And
yes,
I think Star Trek, that's always been its saving grace, is the ideas behind it.
Yeah.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see if Star Trek is good.
Yeah.
Check out our review a little
Fingers
later.
Crossed, yeah.
Written by someone.
We haven't decided.
Maybe in the room.
Are we gonna fight over in the one of those like arena battles that Kirk would fight in?
Their giant cotton swab.
Yeah. Everybody has to wrestle a Gorn,
Done.
Alright, any final thoughts on Star Trek?
I still say Galaxy Quest is the best Star Trek movie.
Oh
There
my
you
gosh,
go.
go see Galaxy Quest. Watch it. Actually, watch like some Star Trek, then go watch Galaxy Quest.
So you know when it's moving.
Yeah, it's so good.
Alright, well on that note, thanks for tuning in. Remember, if you like this podcast, please click thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at T.H.O Movie Reviews. And to check out all the great content and reviews we have at thomoviereviews.wordpress.com. Once again, I'm Bennett Campbell Ferguson. I'm here with Maxwell, Meyers, and Shaunette. And from all of us here at T.H.O, happy movie watching.
Live long and prosper.
You gotta love the way our website just rolls right off the tongue.
I know. By the way, we are all successfully doing the Vulcan hand salute right now.
Man.
You'll just have to take our word for it.
When you do tube mode, you just look like a crab.